Now, we're going to speak about a different kind of inclusions of hospitality within the respective spaces. I won't give too much away. But before I call on the moderator, I'm going to leave you in her capable hands. So the next time you will see Tami Ngarimeng on stage will be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp in this room. So please help me welcome to stage Dr. Mmatsatsi Ramawela. A round of applause, please.
Thank you so much, Tami. She's a home girl, you know. She's a home girl. We celebrate her here in this part of the world. Good afternoon. Oh, shall I say good evening? Is it good evening already? Look at the room. I was saying to my panel members, it looks like we're going to have a discussion with the chairs. Huh? The chairs are here, but you are here. Please clap for yourself for sticking around. I promise you, you will not regret for staying for this session because, you know, a lot of people are afraid of new things. So we are talking new stuff. And so please get excited because before we get into panel discussion, just to give you a glimpse of what we're going to talk about, which is going to be about co-living, the merging of co-working spaces and hospitality, because we are hoteliers, aren't we? But we're going to be talking the merger of co-working and hospitality. But to get us started, to set the scene for our session, please put your hands together to welcome Michael Aldridge to the stage. Michael?
By 2030, 1 in 3 people coming into the workforce will be in Africa. Now, I wonder where we'll all be by 2030. It's not far away. Now, what do we know about this workforce? Well, when we consider the great transition that's occurring in many African economies, most of this workforce is going to be in urbanized commercial space. Now, what we also know is that post-COVID, the human capital decision has become even more of an important process for enterprise. It's become so important to protect your number one asset. But it's got very complicated. There's all kinds of demands coming from that talent, whether it's about their family, lifestyle, rotation, technology, sustainability, variety, all of these elements coming into play, which is leading us now to solutions that involve experts, where space is becoming something that is much more of a service than an asset. Now, when we think about the radical revolution that's occurring in workspace, it's not just happening in the rest of the world, it's happening in Africa as well. And its capacity to leap over legacy systems and move into alternative models is also happening when we consider the workspace. This is why I founded KOFISI, to revolutionize the way workspace is being delivered in Africa, leveraging these ideas of shared workspace and thinking about the new concerns of the employee in this great continent. Now, when we look at shared workspace, it's one of the fastest growing sectors in the world. Exceptional growth has occurred in many markets, but we've gone through 1.0 models to 2.0 models with some well-documented failures in certain models. And certainly now in this post-COVID environment, what we're looking at is a 3.0 model, which is constructed on better service, that is constructed on greater support, that is constructed on hospitality. Now, there's a large number of people to be able to service, 11 million potentially, with 20% of shared workspace, of commercial space becoming shared. That would equate to nearly 500 million square feet of commercial space becoming shared across the continent. So it's a large opportunity and it's a large requirement. Now, what I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit how we do this at KOFISI, which is different to the way other peoples in the world have approached the model. We focus on productivity. Now, productivity, of course, is getting not the same from less, which is efficiency, but it's getting more from the same. Productivity is the drive that all of you in every company you're in are determined to get, because this is what creates returns. So we focus on productivity elements, not frills. We're not just putting things together because it makes fun to have it. We're doing it because it resonates with the requirements of the companies. And it starts by us looking at customized space, which is customized differently for each one of our hundreds of clients to make sure their space is closer connected to their actual work. We then take some beautiful spaces and create a range of facilities that sit outside of your own workspace, surrounding that then with the most important part of the journey, which is the hospitality system, the engaged staff that are there. We wrap this all together and we call this hotelification. Hotelification as an idea where instead of going off to your room and using a shower, you go off to your office and use a desk. Everything in between is somewhat the same. And what we've been able to do at KOFISI is to create a place where we've connected that customized service and workspace into a member club feel to create an ecosystem that creates hyper productivity. Now we do this in 3 ways. 1, space. Very intentional facilities. As you go through your journey, you come in, you use concierge. You'll obviously want to meet with people in various locations, have events, gather in different scales, right up to conference size like we're doing today, as well as dipping into micro disciplines like media suites that can be there to support you with access to technology and spaces that will support micro areas of your journey. We surround that with food and beverage, the staple of all hospitality, and your capacity to either eat in the unit itself or at your desk through room service. Finally, we're providing spaces that can offer training to support the growth in your number one asset, but as well as wellness, which is also there to maintain and help your number one assets to look after themselves. And we do that as a service, not just as a space. So this is not just putting a gym in, this is actually having wellness officers that will go into businesses and help them understand some of the issues they may be facing with the current team. What this does is it creates a seamless blend of balance between your work and your home life, and then creating productivity in the workplace. The second thing we do is design. Now, at KOFISI, we agonize over design. We say that, the one thing that good and bad design have in common is they both cost the same amount of money. So if we actually spend the time planning and thinking and working through how the space comes together, as you go through your day of collision to decision, to dedication, to celebration, all of these different spaces require a different kind of feeling. And we think that through in the psychology of space. As space scientists, we're engaging in different means of music, we're using sound, we're using patterns, we're using colors, all just to inspire a different sense of mood, to give you that variety that matters. This is then connected to a deeply localized approach to the design process, alongside the customized activities that we do for each client as we take them on that journey. Sometimes we sort of say, what we like, as we've heard before, design is a little bit like a refrigerator. When it works, you don't really notice it, but when it doesn't, it sure stinks. So when we're actually very proud of is how deeply connected it is to the local, in the way that 70% of our interiors are made locally. It's not all imported from international. It's a big part of the theme for us at KOFISI. As is the third most important element, people. People are the number one asset, as I said, of any company, and they are with KOFISI. Hospitality works because you invest in your people. We have trained our teams across all the markets that we're in, across the continent, to be able to create that consistency in service, but also that engagement, focusing on their capacity to create a strong narrative, to have a dialogue with our customers, not just a monologue, and take them on a journey which we've understood and broken down to be very difficult sometimes for them to achieve, because there's no sense of relativity for them. Quite a lot of the time, the people who work inside our units will not have experienced service themselves. So actually, we've got to translate them and take them there. And we've done that through our academy, where we use technology, we use AI, we use service systems of our own and our teams to actually ensure that every person is getting that constant training. That means that we're able to deliver quality service to the same quality as been recognized in our design. Now, None of this is theoretical, it's proven. We're doing this in multiple locations. We're proud to say over 10 years, we're now the only provider who is deeply into all 4 zones of the continent, north, south, east, west. We're doing that with 80,000 square foot locations. And that's a fabulous ecosystem that allows our enterprises of all different scales to be able to operate inside. And we provide this workspace with great value proposition. It's much cheaper than it is to do it yourself. It's more efficient than doing it yourself. It's more flexible than doing it yourself. And this leads to bigger occupancy rates. It leads to exceptional returns from other service lines in food and beverage, in events, in other forms of income streams, all leading to strong unit economics, strong relationships with landlords, and strong and deep relationships with our clients. Now, why does this work? It works for 2 reasons. One is service space is working everywhere in the world. Service real estate space is working. This is a picture of number 1 Vanderbilt in New York. It's the most invested building in the world in terms of interiors. It's 100% occupied. The highly serviced models don't experience the same vacancy problems that we're seeing. The flood to quality is there. If you're coming in on rotation, you probably want to spend a little bit more on your experience. And so we've found that the adoption rates for better product are stronger. The other point, though, is that you're building this on a bedrock of hospitality, because it's assimilating from models that you will recognize in this room, and why we're here to talk about this being a new asset class inside hospitality, because we're using the same systems that you have used for hundreds of years. We're now bringing it into the workspace. And hotelification, though, in its construct, as KOFISI refers to it, is talking about using the same mechanics of a hotel. But here's the investor pitch. Because it's better than a hotel, because it's more efficient, because it's much more predictable in the times and the usage. It's better than a hotel because it's more efficient, because there's less wastage, because it's more predictable. It's better than a hotel because people don't just stay for 1 night, they stay for 3 years. Okay, and all of this creates much better financial metrics and a much stronger sense of return. The second reason is it's absolutely necessary. It's necessary as a product line, which means it can be taken anywhere across the continent. Once you get past the taxi and the hotel and you get to the desk, any established business has to use a desk. We stand in the way of the traffic the whole time. And so the workspace model will continue to grow because of its necessity, and it works at any point in the cycle, in any landscape. And we're delighted with the growth that we've had as KOFISI across the continent, launching now as the largest private network, specifically after our recent announcement of our partnership with the South African brand Workshop 17. We're now the largest provider across the continent, and we're able to provide Africa-wide any enterprise solution for our clients who are enjoying this kind of product. And so that ends our story today, but it doesn't end our tale. It doesn't end our tale of ambition and our love affair with space and service. Because remember that productivity doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of continued effort and a focus on excellence and a pursuit of all things that are required. The world is changing. The workspace requirement is improving. The need for productivity ever more so, as is the case not just in the world, but in Africa. And what we are hoping to do with KOFISI is to service those clients and to be part of that growing dominance of the African workforce. We are doing this through disruption. We're doing this through taking a new approach by applying hospitality to the workspace. We're doing this as KOFISI. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Michael, for that presentation. And I thought in the beginning, I did not tell you a short story of how I came about to be moderating this session this afternoon. The team at Bench, my good friends at Bench, Tanya specifically, the back, she's guilty. She got to know that I did my PhD, which I concluded earlier this year. And I was looking at short-term rentals and how they have changed specifically those that are run on the internet, on the digital spaces, and specifically on how the regulators, your city councils, your governments across the world, how they are struggling to regulate them. They are behind the curve. And the ethics around the kind of intervention that they tend to put in place, which are often late, and they often run into trouble with private sector. You know the stories that Google and Airbnb had gone across. So my PhD was around that, but as I was busy doing my research and my studies, I came across the newest trends of how these short-term rental spaces in the accommodation space is expanding. Even as we speak, how there's different, permutation of this kind of market segment. And then I ran into the co-living spaces, the co-working spaces, how they are also changing. The entire concept of workplace, the whole entire concept of a worker, the modern worker, post-COVID-19. And then, of course, their requirements. And so this is how I came to be able to be in this session. I found it very fascinating because it's a whole new segment for us in the hotel space. And so this is why we then had Michael to really set the scene so that we bring you into this space as to what it is we are talking about. Because as hoteliers, you're sitting here, you're saying, what is this Michael talking about? Working spaces, what's that got to do with us? But with this presentation, he's been able to bring you to the picture as what it is that we're talking about, an opportunity for you as hoteliers. And so to take forward this discussion, let me bring the rest of the panel on the podium. Let's bring Mark Simon, former Soho House. He's joining in. Long history of hospitality. Mark, please join us on the stage. And of course, Khalil from Kasada Capital. This is the rest of my panel that is going to join me so that we can further demystify this discussion, this concept. Some of you are looking at it and say, what is this thing still? Michael has done the presentation, hotelification, what is this? Let's discuss this further. So let me start with Michael. So he, and I simply want to ask and said, Michael, co-working spaces, all the work that you have demonstrated, you have done, the rapid expansion you guys have had as KOFISI across the continent. What are some of the blocks, challenges that you have come across in implementing this vision that you have that I'm sure the audience are excited to hear more about?
Yeah, thank you for the question. There are many elements of building out a hospitality brand that are difficult. I'm sure many people will relate to here. I think to pick on one area specifically, it's being about being able to create consistent quality, right, in terms of the product in every market that we operate in, which has differences of capacity or differences in delivery, but you're trying to create that consistency. And so the investment in people has been really one of our biggest considerations. And as I said earlier on, I think that the biggest journey there has been making or helping our teams understand the relevance of why we're doing the things we're doing. Because unlike, I'm British, but I live in Kenya, I understand how the service model should work. I have an instinct for it. Malcolm Gladwell would say I've spent 10,000 hours consuming, so I probably know how to instinctively work in a service environment. A lot of our teams don't have that background. They don't have that 10,000 hours. So we've had to work out new ways that we can replicate and speed up that understanding, looking at other parts of their lives that they can relate to, or other parts of the culture they can relate to translate that into stronger service systems. And we're really delighted by the outputs that have come from our academy, and we're very proud of the fact that many of the staff that work through our systems have increase their earning capacity by 20-30%. And we think the future of the management will come through these systems as well.
So Michael, when we were having our session to prepare for this discussion, you talking, bringing hospitality into the core working space.
Yes.
That's the concept of hotelification.
Yes.
As we explained it. But there's another side to this discussion. It's bringing co-working culture approaches into the hotel space. Yeah. And that brings in Khalil. Please explain the concept. Michael had this opportunity to explain this other side of the picture. So bring us this space where we're talking about bringing the concept of co-working into the hotel environment.
Thanks for that. First, I want to thank Michael for the presentation. Very inspiring and exciting. I will be really following the journey on injecting some hospitality in the co-working.
Thank you.
So in the hospitality industry, let's say we at Kasada and at asset management, we really believe that workspace is an opportunity for the hotel itself, right? And the reason is, if you look at the investor's perspective, is in terms of revenue, you add revenue stream, you increase your revenue per square meter in your assets, you look at your EBITDA per square meter, and this kind of product actually is very efficient, because basically from the asset management perspective, you look at the program and you work with your strategic partner. We have a strategic partner that is Accor. We look at how we integrate this kind of product and connecting it to the rest of the hotel. I think that is a big differentiator for our hotels, because basically having the working element in a hotel, you are not only talking to the business travelers and so on. You are talking to your neighborhoods, right? And your hotel becomes like an element attracting, of course, business traveling and so on. But then your neighborhood can come to the place. When we went through the COVID and there was no one in a hotel, I think that kind of product could be an answer to the crisis also, right? I think it's a big differentiator, and we look at the co-working as a solution that can, let's say, offer like under one roof solution, basically. When you are in the hotel, in the ecosystem, you are retained. We can generate traffic. You have hotel guests, but you have also externals. Most of our clients for the co-working, actually, it's very interesting. They are actually also KOFISI long-term clients. We have an average duration contract of 2 years, and people are coming, sitting in our wardrobe and using the hotel, right? So it generates some opportunities, some cross-selling revenue. We have at the hotel, we have already the amenities. It's all about economy of scales, how you use your kitchen to offer better F&B. Why not having some rooms, right, through the co-working? So the desk become like an entry point to an overall ecosystem, and as an investor and owner, it's amazing because you retain people within that ecosystem, and I think that's really important, and that's why articulating wardrobe in the Accor ecosystem is really key for us. I think we are the only one doing it in Africa, and we hope that others will keep on doing this. We have open in Nairobi, we're in Abidjan. We also have a Pan-African approach. We want to create a business community that through the desk offers also the accommodation and all the hotel stuff. You need to align your system. The access control has to be aligned. Everything has to be aligned to enhance that customer experience. So on our perspective, co-working is actually an additional offering that differentiates us versus the rest of the hotels and remain quite efficient in terms of investing opportunity, because you look at the revenue per square meter KPI, that is a very important KPI, right, for us as an owner.
So listening to you both, the common denominator in this concept here is hospitality. So I would like you, and I'll come back to you, Mike, to Mark, and I'll come to you, Mark. Can you just explain to someone the concept of co-working with hospitality from your end? What actually does it constitute? What is actually the component?
Well, I think what you're doing is you're talking about gradation of service. I think where a co-working model, if you remember, really was just about creating an environment that allowed connection. It was, in sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing you did was crave connectivity. So you wanted to stop working in your mum's garage or in a coffee shop, and you wanted to go to an office space. But then it was just facilitation of that. That's very basic service. Or, you think about it as an analogy, service is really just about keeping the lights on. Whereas hospitality is about helping you shine a light on your idea. Because what you're doing is you're creating a world of supportive service that sits around just that one basic need, which gives you all of the access. And we talk a lot at KOFISI about the fact that we're not trying to be substitutive, we're just trying to be supportive services. So we don't expect you to eat in our restaurant every day, but you can eat in our restaurant. We don't expect you to go to the bar every day, but it's there if you want to celebrate, right? And you have a big conference, or you go to the gym, or whatever it may be. All of these things are actually driving down to the idea of, when you're actually making money, you're typically doing that from only 20% of your work hours. The other 80%, you need stimulation of some sort to drive a better experience. If you can take that 2 hours to 3 hours, you're putting 50% on your productivity, or personally that can increase your own income, but also your company succeeding. So I think hospitality is a much more complex animal. But what we've done is just taken the same thinkings, what Khalil's done brilliantly with Wojo, and Accor have been, a pioneer in that thinking from a hotel model because they're using the same infrastructure. So they've put co-working into the hotel. We're bringing the hotel feeling, which is the ultimate hospitality model, into the workspace.
Brilliant, because that then allows me to bring in Mark. Why the focus on hospitality, Mark, with your experience from your Soho house?
Yeah, thanks, Mmatsatsi. I think all of us know that non-traditional hospitality companies are looking at hospitality people to bring into their workspaces. Banks, doctors' offices, all of these companies that are non-traditional hospitality, but realize there's a great toolkit that we have in hospitality to bring into these other sectors. I love Danny Meyer's interpretation of hospitality. Danny Meyer, who had Union Square Cafe, one of the best restaurants in the world, he talks about the difference between service and hospitality. Service being the technical aspect of bringing the cappuccino to your table in 3 minutes and it's tasty and it's hot, whereas hospitality is how you make people feel. And I think that's a huge part of what this is about. It's in your workspace, we rent you an office and you're there to be productive and you're there to work and you're there to do what it is you're supposed to be doing from 9 to 5 or whatever it is, but you have this feeling, if it's done right, and I think KOFISI is an excellent example, you have this deep sense of belonging. So you're there, you love walking in, you get greeted by name by the receptionist, you walk past the cafe and someone says, Mark, you want that decaf latte now, or are you going to come back in half an hour like you normally do? And all these things, it's second nature in hotels that make somebody feel this deep sense of belonging. And it's similar to how private members clubs get people to pay a membership fee just to walk in the door. That this feeling of this elevated sense of service. And I think that's what the idea of bringing hospitality into these shared workspaces is so critical, and I'm sure is going to be seen across many others.
Mark, can you share some example with the audience here, where example of transitions from where co-working hospitality has been integrated into co-working? What examples can you share with us?
Sure. So at my time at Soho House, so Soho House is a private members club company. Started with one club in Soho in London. It was a small private members club, and then they realized that they were building this community, and then went into the hotel market. So they opened a members club and a hotel, and then they realized, similar to KOFISI with the wellness, they realized that wellness was a big part of people's lives, and so they created the Cowshed brand. So it's a club, it's a hotel, it's a spa and wellness space. Then they created Soho Works, which was a co-working company. So I think it's the infrastructure is there. So in a members club, you've got a front desk, you've got a kitchen, you've got a housekeeping team, you've got a general manager. So adding on a hotel is, okay, building some bedrooms, which takes some money, but you add 3 more housekeepers. And you've got the economies of scale because you've got a front desk that's checking in a hotel guest or your member. So I think that's probably the best example where the mechanics are there and you can just tack on these other bits and pieces.
I think that's the point. It's the mechanics are so similar. The revenue model will fluctuate a little bit because, as we were saying, the thing that, and we're seeing, there's other Accor brands like with working from, with embedded in Hoxton. And I think you're getting that long-term guaranteed income, unlike the F&B income that is fluctuating, or the eventing income, which is sporadic. But then the hotel bed nights. I mean, obviously you're a strong brand, you're going to get high occupancy, but that blend of asset management, that blend of revenue stream, the asset management, is quite compelling. Actually,
I want to bring Khalil
to that point. I mean,
Khalil, as you add, I would like you to also just for the audience to say, how have you implemented it in an example that the audience can refer to with the work that we've been doing?
I mean, it's very important that the co-working is seen as part of the hotel business, because, as Mark said, it's the DNA of the hotel industry to be serving, and they will bring you that level and expectation, right? So the moment the co-working is seen as part of the outlets of the hotel and the business, you get an amazing experience, because you have the clients and the customer at heart at heart of the ecosystem. But to do that, you need to get your marketing right, and that's why you need really to work closely with the hotel and with Accor and Wojo, and not lose and confuse people. You need to have your system aligned, and for people that are in this audience, you need to have Opera set it up. You have Symphony. All the tools have to be just the back office have to be just lean, to make sure you bring that experience to the client. And the third thing is a loyalty program that for us is a big differentiator. Any Wojo member is an all member. You can earn and burn within that ecosystem, and I think that's very important to note. You want to retain people, right, in an ecosystem that is enjoyable, right? And imagine if you can earn your points. So loyalty, you can burn them at the bar, at the spa, rooms, whatever, right? So that's the bet, and that's the promise. We are learning by doing, but the first result we have on Nairobi and Abidjan are very promising, because we generate cross-selling and we create that ecosystem.
It needs to be very intentional how those connections work. It's not just about plugging it on the side and hoping that will create some degree of connection. Even in a KOFISI workspace, when we put in facilities, we make sure that the ergonomics of how that works through the building mean that you have to engage with it. This has worked very well in our partner brand, Workshop 17, with what they've done in Rosebank with the Voco Hotel at the bank, with Voco Hotel and the Workshop 17. And that was actually a considered design program where 3 brands came together with the Proud Mary restaurant, and you get an absolute transition sense, sort of Disneyfied, in the way that, who are the masters at that. And it really works, and you feel the ergonomics as well as the systems, which is what, they've been fantastic at Accor in embedding it in that way. But it has to be intentional in its thinking.
100%. So thank you very much. We don't have much time, but if there's any questions in the audience, please, because we know we're talking about a new thing. People are still grinding it in the head. What does this thing mean? Anybody with a burning question to the panel? Because we just about out of time. Anybody?
I think
crystal clear. Okay, great stuff. Let me ask
I think they want to know where the bar is.
we're standing between you and the party tonight, so we will be finishing a bit.
There's one question at the back.
Is there a question at the back?
There's a question here.
Great stuff. Here we go.
Great.
Love questions from the audience. Great.
Yeah, just curious with KOFISI, who your target demographic or audience is?
In terms of the user, the client?
Yes.
It's every company. I mean, we're probably more at the established enterprise level rather than the individual contingent workforce, because we're really about culture support. Going back to that hierarchy of needs I talked about, the connectivities at the beginning, at the end is culture support. And so, we are tending to work with large enterprise solutions. 50% of our business is with local African businesses. So it's not just high-paying tech or banking clients from America. It is actually, because the future of Africa is African companies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As my closing question, because we're definitely out of time and the beer is waiting for everybody at the party. For Khalil and Michael, why should potential investors be interested in your concepts and your models? The people who are sitting here thinking, great idea, something I should look at it, why should they? Just as a final send-off.
I think it's diversification. I mean, whether it's inside the hotel or it's outside as a concept that, people are very comfortable with putting investment into business models where there's no certainty of the income stream. We do have a certainty of income stream. You know, if we have 90% occupancy, forward US dollar income. So I think it's worth engaging with the thought process to understand a whole 500 million square feet of commercial space you weren't actually going to engage in. Maybe that's something that you may think about today.
Lovely. Khalil?
I think it's a win-win thing where basically, as an investor, you get to optimize your space and you generate more revenue stream. And meanwhile, it helps you to differentiate and like operationally and business-wise attract different targets and keep that distribution channel healthy. So investors-wise and business-wise, I think it's a win-win thing when it's well executed.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Mark, any final thoughts in terms of this last question?
Well, I think because we're going to put a bar in there, who doesn't like a cold beer? And with that, maybe it's time to go get a cold beer.
Wonderful. That's a lovely way to end it. Ladies and gentlemen, we know it's been a long day. We really appreciate you standing. So at least it was not the chairs alone. There's some souls sitting in those chairs. We really appreciate you waiting here and engaging us, even if you didn't ask questions. Please, let's put our hands together to thank our panel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.